Kevin Harvick, one of NASCAR's most outspoken drivers, has thrown a harsh criticism on Kyle Larson following the dramatic events at the Ally 400 race in Nashville. The veteran driver didn't hold back as he dissected the heated rivalry between Larson and Denny Hamlin, which reached a boiling point on the track. Tensions were running high on the track. The race had been a back-and-forth battle all afternoon, with Larson and Hamlin trading the lead and trading paint at every turn. As the laps wound down, it looked like we were headed for an epic finish. But then, during an overtime restart, things took a shocking turn. Kyle Larson, who was running just behind Denny Hamlin, suddenly made a move that would change the course of the race. Larson surged forward, getting right up on Hamlin's rear bumper. The two cars were practically touching as they roared down the front stretch. And then, in a moment, Larson gave Hamlin a solid bump from behind. A little bit of contact is nothing new in NASCAR. Drivers are always jockeying for position, and sometimes that means trading a little bit of paint. Instead of just rattling Hamlin's cage a bit, Larson ended up shooting up the track and straight into the side of Ross Chastain's car. The impact was so severe that it took Chastain right out of the race. The damage was severe, and just like that, Chastain's race was over. It was a huge moment that left fans stunned and had everyone wondering what was going through Larson's mind. Meanwhile, Larson managed to keep his car under control and continued on, leaving a trail of sparks and debris in his wake. The crowd was stunned. The announcers were speechless, and social media immediately erupted with hot takes and reactions. Many fans and analysts were quick to point the finger at the growing rivalry between Larson and Hamlin. These two drivers have been at each other's throats for months now, and it seems like their animosity finally boiled over in Nashville. But was it just a case of hard racing gone wrong? Or was there something more calculated behind Larson's move? That's the question on everyone's mind, and it's a question that NASCAR legend Kevin Harvick was quick to weigh in on. This is a guy who's been around the block a few times in NASCAR, and when he sees something he doesn't like, he's going to call it out. And that's exactly what he did in the aftermath of the Nashville race. Harvick took to his podcast Happy Hours to offer his thoughts on Kyle Larson's actions. Right off the bat, Harvick made it clear that he thought Larson's move was way out of line. He called it uncharacteristic and out of character for a driver of Larson's caliber. Harvick pointed out that Larson is usually a very smart, very calculated racer. He's not the type of guy to let his emotions get the best of him or to make reckless moves on the track. But in Nashville, it seemed like Larson was operating on a different wavelength. Harvick said on the Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour podcast, "I don't even think that was the right place to wreck him. You can't be bumper to bumper like that pushing him into the corner. You're not just going to push those tanks out of the way."
I don't even think that was the right place to wreck him, do you?
No, on the entry to one?
You can't be bumper to bumper like that, pushing him into the corner. You're not just going to push those tanks out of the way.
No.
In Harvick's view, Larson should have been focused on one thing and one thing only: winning the race. That's what the best drivers do. They put aside any personal vendettas or outside distractions, and they zero in on that checkered flag. But instead, it looked like Larson was more interested in settling a score with Hamlin than he was in taking home the trophy. And that, in Harvick's estimation, was a huge mistake. Harvick even went as far as to say that if Larson had just raced like his usual self, if he had blocked out the noise and focused on his driving, he could have won that race. It was a bold claim, but coming from a driver of Harvick's experience and stature, it carried a lot of weight. Harvick's criticism of Larson didn't stop there. He also pointed out what he saw as a missed opportunity for the young driver. You see, at the time of the incident with Hamlin, Ross Chastain was also in the mix. Chastain and Hamlin were engaged in their own heated battle, trading positions back and forth as they fought for every inch of track. In Harvick's view, this was a perfect scenario for Larson. With his two main rivals occupied with each other, Larson had a chance to capitalize. He could have hung back, let Hamlin and Chastain wear each other out, and then made his move when the time was right. But instead, Larson got impatient. He tried to force the issue, and in doing so, he not only took himself out of contention, but he also ruined Chastain's race in the process. It was a rookie mistake, and one that Harvick believes cost Larson dearly. He said, "Look, when you're in a position to win the race, that's not when you settle the score, I think you try to win the race first and settle the score later.
When you're in a position to win the race, that's not when you settle the score. You try to win the race first and settle the score later.
It's a hard lesson, but it's one that every driver needs to learn at some point in their career. The best racers are the ones who can keep their cool under pressure, who can think strategically even in the heat of the moment. And in Nashville, it seemed like Kyle Larson let his emotions get the best of him. He also raised some interesting questions about the external pressures that might have been weighing on Larson. Harvick suggested that Larson may have been feeling the heat from his team, his sponsors, or even his fans to take a more aggressive approach with Hamlin. After all, this rivalry has been simmering for a while now, and there's no doubt that a lot of people wanted to see Larson stand up for himself and assert his dominance on the track. But as Harvick pointed out, that kind of external pressure can be dangerous. It can cloud a driver's judgment and lead them to make decisions that they wouldn't normally make. That's the part that I think you learn along the way. And I think Kyle Larson will take a lesson from this and say, you know what? I don't need to listen to the guys around me in some of these situations.
That's the part that I think you learn along the way. And I think Kyle Larson will take a lesson from this and say, you know what?
I'm going to do what I normally
listen
do.
to the guys around me in some of these situations, because the crew guys...
It's important to trust your own instincts and to make decisions based on your own values and goals, not on what others think you should do. And in the case of Kyle Larson, it seems like maybe he got a little bit lost in the noise and the hype surrounding his rivalry with Hamlin. Of course, Kevin Harvick wasn't the only NASCAR luminary to weigh in on the Larson-Hamlin feud. Dale Earnhardt Jr., one of the most respected and beloved figures in the sport, also had some thoughts to share. In a recent episode of his popular podcast, The Dale Jr., Download Earnhardt discussed the rivalry and what it means for NASCAR as a whole. First and foremost, Earnhardt made it clear that in his view, there's no question that Larson and Hamlin are rivals. He dismissed any attempts by the drivers themselves to downplay the situation or to claim that it's all just hard racing. Earnhardt traced the origins of the feud back to a race at Pocono, where Larson ended up in the fence after some close racing with Hamlin. Since then, he said, the two drivers have been on a collision course, both literally and figuratively. And in Earnhardt's view, that's not necessarily a bad thing. He argued that rivalries like this one are actually good for NASCAR because they generate excitement and interest among fans. People love to see drivers going at it, trading paint and trading barbs. It adds a whole new dimension to the racing and makes it more than just a test of speed and skill. It becomes a real human drama, with personalities and egos clashing on and off the track. He said, so I think Hamlin and Larson, anytime they can duke it out and get aggressive with each other on the racetrack and use each other up and piss each other off, it's a good thing for all of us. Earnhardt even went as far as to say that he hopes the Larson-Hamlin rivalry continues, because it has the potential to be one of the defining storylines of this era in NASCAR. That's a point that bears further examination. Because while it's easy to get caught up in the negative aspects of a rivalry, the wrecks, the angry words, the hurt feelings, there's also a positive side to consider. Think about some of the most memorable moments in NASCAR history. The Petty Pearson battles of the 1960s and 70s, the Earnhardt-Gordon showdowns of the 90s, the Busch brothers' sibling rivalry in the 2000s and beyond. What do all of these iconic rivalries have in common? They captured the imagination of fans and generated a level of excitement and passion that elevated the sport as a whole. When you have two drivers at the top of their game, pushing each other to be better and leaving everything on the track, it creates a special kind of magic. It's the kind of thing that makes people sit up and take notice, even if they're not die-hard racing fans. And that's exactly what the Larson-Hamlin rivalry has the potential to do. If these two drivers can channel their competitive fire into incredible racing, if they can keep raising the bar and pushing each other to new heights, it could be a defining moment for NASCAR. So, what does the future hold for the Larson-Hamlin rivalry? Well, if the past is any indication, we can expect plenty more fireworks in the weeks and months to come. The next big test will come at the upcoming race in Chicago, a track that's known for its tight corners and close quarters racing. If Larson and Hamlin find themselves in close proximity on the track, you can bet that sparks will fly. Kevin Harvick's brutal attack on Kyle Larson after the Nashville race has added fuel to the fire of an already intense rivalry. The implications of this feud could have a major impact on the rest of the NASCAR season, and fans will be eagerly watching to see how it all evolves. So, what do you think about Harvick's comments? Do you agree with his criticism of Larson, or do you think he's being too harsh? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive NASCAR content.